The storm was eating the sky of Erevos 9 again. Red dust rolled over the mining camp like a living beast. Men and machines hid inside metal shelters, while the wind screamed across the empty plains. Captain Lorne stood by the window, watching the storm lights flicker. He had fought in 3 wars, crossed 5 star systems, but he had never seen a planet that looked so dead and yet so alive. Rumors had started a few weeks ago. Miners said they saw a forge burning inside the old ruins east of the camp. They said someone or something was working there. Some called it a ghost. Some said it was an alien blacksmith still alive after centuries. Lorne had laughed at first, but last night, one of his survey drones picked up a heat signal deep underground. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic. Like the sound of hammering metal, he played the recording again. A metallic clang echoed every few seconds, steady and patient. There was no way a human could survive down there. The ruins were from an ancient species known as the Archon. They had vanished thousands of years ago, leaving behind only strange architecture and melted tunnels that even plasma drills could not cut through. Lorne's crew gathered around the monitor. His engineer Mara shook her head. Could be geothermal pressure. Rocks moving. Lorne zoomed in. The thermal image showed a humanoid shape standing near a forge-like heat core. Rocks don't move like that, he said. The others looked nervous. Captain, if there's something alive down there, it's not human, said Briggs, the security chief. We're not equipped for first contact. Lorne looked at the static on the screen and smiled slightly. That's the fun part. They prepped a descent pod at dawn. The storm was still raging when they dropped into the canyon. The ruins were cut into the rock like a wound. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, reacting to their lights. The deeper they went, the warmer it became until sweat rolled down their necks even through armor suits. The air smelled like iron and burnt stone. Mara kept reading impossible energy levels. There's power down here. Not from our grid. It's old tech still running. Briggs muttered a curse. Archon tech still alive after all this time. That's not possible. Lorne didn't answer. He could feel the vibration under his boots, slow and steady, like a heart beating somewhere below. After an hour of crawling through the narrow tunnels, they reached a massive gate made of dark metal. It was smooth with no seams, no locks. Only an imprint of a hand burned into the center. When Lorne touched it, the metal rippled like water and opened. Light flooded the chamber. They stepped inside, weapons ready. In the center stood a forge glowing blue, powered by something that hummed like a living thing. Sparks flew in slow motion, and standing before it was a figure taller than any man. The alien was covered in silver armor fused with flesh, its face hidden behind a mask of molten glass. In one hand it held a hammer, in the other a piece of bright metal that shimmered with colors no human eye could name. The hammer rose and fell in silence, striking the metal that refused to cool. Lorne raised his scanner. "It's alive," he whispered. The figure stopped moving. The sound of the forge deepened, like a heartbeat turning into a drum. The alien turned slowly toward them. The mask reflected their lights, showing only their own faces staring back. Then the voice came. It was deep and metallic, echoing through the chamber without sound waves. "You should not have come here, human. The forge remembers its believers." Mara froze. "It speaks English." Lorne took a step forward. "Who are you?" The alien tilted its head slightly. "I am the Forge Master of Archon. I wait for the one who still believes in creation." Before anyone could respond, the forge behind him roared to life. Energy surged across the walls, symbols lighting up one by one. Lorne's scanner overloaded and died. The chamber shook. The alien stepped closer, eyes glowing from behind the mask. "The metal is almost ready," it said softly, "but it needs one more spark." The lights flickered. The comms cut off. The drone feed went black. On the surface, the crew watching from the control tent saw only static. Then, for a brief second, a face appeared on the screen. Not human, not machine. A reflection of both. The voice whispered through the static. "The impossible metal is awake." The screen went dark and the storm outside grew louder, as if the planet itself had begun to breathe. The forge chamber was silent after the voice faded. Only the faint hum of energy filled the air. Lorne and his team stood frozen, staring at the alien figure. The silver armor shimmered as if it were breathing. The hammer in its hand pulsed with a dull blue light. Lorne lowered his rifle slowly. "We're not here to fight," he said. The alien looked at him without moving. The mask reflected the firelight, hiding whatever face lay beneath. After a long moment, it spoke again. Few come without greed. Tell me, human, what do you seek in the ruins of my dead world? Lorne hesitated. We were told the Archon built weapons that could reshape matter. We wanted to know the truth. The Forge Master turned back toward the forge. The sound of metal rang once more, slow and heavy. Weapons, it said quietly. That is what destroyed us. Creation turned to war. Every hammer became a gun. Every forge became a battlefield. Mara took a step forward. What are you forging? The alien raised the glowing metal for them to see. It looked alive, rippling like liquid light. Aetherium, the Forge Master said. The metal that remembers. The impossible metal, Briggs frowned. That's a myth. Physically impossible. No element can behave like that. The Forge Master turned its gaze toward him. It is impossible for your science because your hearts doubt. The Archon once believed as you do, then they forgot to believe in creation. Lorne looked at the shimmering piece in awe. Why keep forging if your kind is gone? The alien placed the metal back in the flames. Because belief keeps them alive. Every strike I make carries their memory. One day the metal will awaken, and it will remember all of us. The words sank deep into Lorne's mind. The fire from the forge danced across his visor, painting strange reflections. Can it be finished? He asked. The Forge Master's tone softened. Alone I cannot. The final spark must come from something alive, something human. That is why you are here. The team shifted nervously. Briggs gripped his weapon tighter. Captain, this is insane. We need to leave before he could finish. The ground trembled. The lights dimmed, and a deep rumble echoed through the ruins. Mara checked her scanner. Massive energy surge. It's coming from below us. The Forge Master turned toward the far wall. A crack split open, revealing a tunnel that glowed faintly red. The heart of the forge lies beneath. There burns the plasma core. With it we can finish what was begun. Lorne looked at his team. Their faces were pale under the blue glow. We came this far. We go together. Briggs cursed under his breath but nodded. The group followed the alien down the tunnel. The air grew hotter. The walls were covered in strange carvings, spirals, stars, and symbols that seemed to shift when no one looked directly at them. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Rivers of molten light flowed through channels in the floor. At the center stood a crystal engine spinning slowly, suspended in mid-air. This is the heart, the Forge Master said. The same power that gave birth to our sunships. It will give life to the metal if it does not destroy us first. Mara stepped closer, scanning the readings. It's alive, she whispered. The plasma is conscious. It reacts when I move. Lorne felt the heat burning through his suit, but he couldn't look away. How do we use it? The Forge Master raised his hammer. You do not use it. You join with it. You let it remember you. Briggs aimed his weapon at the alien. No way. You're not sacrificing anyone. This thing could melt a city. The Forge Master did not move. Then your world will never see creation again. Only more weapons. The heat rose until the metal under their boots began to glow. Lorne's visor filled with warning signs. He turned toward his crew. Go back to the surface. That's an order. Mara shook her head. Not leaving you. The Forge Master stepped toward the plasma core. The Forge will choose who is worthy. Before anyone could react, the light exploded outward. A wave of pure energy rushed through the chamber. Lorne was thrown to the ground. His visor shattered. When his vision cleared, he saw the Forge Master standing inside the storm of light, hammer raised high. The alien shouted over the roar, "The metal remembers belief, human! Do you believe?" Lorne tried to stand, shielding his eyes from the blinding light. The air crackled. His heart pounded. "I believe," he said. The core pulsed once, then twice, then went silent. The light faded. The Forge Master was gone. Only his hammer remained, resting beside the glowing forge. Lorne reached for it, his hand trembling. The moment he touched the metal, a voice echoed inside his head. The forging has begun. He fell to his knees as the walls started to move again, the symbols around him lighting up in sequence. Above, the storm outside changed color, from red to silver, like the planet itself was waking from a long sleep. The chamber was silent after the blast. Smoke floated like slow-moving ghosts between the glowing walls. Lorne lay on the floor, breathing hard. His suit cracked and burned. The hammer was still in his hand, warm and heavy, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. Mara rushed toward him. "Captain, are you all right?" Her voice echoed strangely, like the walls were repeating her words a second too late. Lorne opened his eyes. For a moment, he saw two worlds overlapping, the ruined forge around him and something else. A vast city of light and fire standing under a silver sky. Then the vision vanished. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice didn't sound like his own. It had a metallic echo beneath it. He looked at the hammer again. Strange symbols glowed on its surface, the same ones that had appeared on the walls before the explosion. Briggs helped him stand. "That alien is gone, Captain. Whatever that thing did, it almost killed us." Lorne didn't answer. His mind was still filled with the words of the Forge Master. The metal remembers belief. They climbed back toward the upper tunnels. The forge light behind them slowly dimmed, but the hammer's glow followed, steady and alive. As they reached the surface, the storm outside had changed. The dust was silver now, not red. It shimmered under the weak sunlight like tiny metal flakes drifting through the air. At the camp, the team's equipment was malfunctioning. Screens flickered, drones spun out of control, and the AI core in their ship, Helix, kept restarting on its own. "Helix," Mara called. "Status report." The AI's voice came back distorted. "Power levels unstable. Unknown interference. Detected source. Inside." Briggs frowned. "Inside what?" "Inside you, Captain Lorne." Everyone froze. Lorne felt a sudden vibration in his chest. His armor panels moved slightly, as if adjusting themselves. He looked down and saw tiny streams of silver crawling from the hammer into his gloves, spreading like veins. Mara backed away. "Captain, it's bonding with you." Lorne tried to drop the hammer, but his hand wouldn't let go. It felt like the weapon had become part of his flesh. "Get the med kit," he said, his voice trembling. The AI spoke again, this time clearer. "Human and Ethereum interface detected. Synchronization at 11%. Briggs raised his gun. "We need to cut that thing off before it kills you." Lorne stared at him. "No, it's not killing me." He could feel it, something powerful, calm and ancient whispering inside his head. It wasn't pain. It was knowledge. Shapes, equations, languages he didn't understand filled his mind. Then he heard another voice, softer but clearer. "Do not fear, human. The Forge remembers you now." It was the Forge Master's voice. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. Lorne looked around. "Faelcor, where are you?" No answer came, but he felt the presence watching him like the heat of a distant fire. Hours passed as they tried to repair the ship. The storm outside never stopped. Silver dust covered everything. Lorne sat alone near the reactor bay, holding the hammer. When he closed his eyes, he saw images again. Arkan soldiers building starships, alien children running through cities made of crystal, and a massive explosion that ended it all. Mara entered quietly. "Captain, you're not sleeping." "I can't, it's showing me things." She sat beside him. "The aliens' memories?" He nodded. "I think this metal is alive. It's remembering through me, maybe finishing what he started." Before she could reply, the ship lights flickered again. The AI's voice turned cold. "Warning. External movement detected." Briggs appeared on the comm. "Captain, we've got company." Multiple heat signatures around the camp. Not human. They rushed to the command deck. On the monitors, figures moved through the storm, tall shapes of molten light walking slowly toward the camp. Each step left glowing prints in the sand. "What the hell are those?" Mara whispered. Lorne's heart pounded. He felt the hammer pulse in his hand. The shapes stopped outside the camp perimeter. The sensors read no life signs. The AI spoke again. "Energy pattern matches the plasma core below the forge." Lorne stepped outside into the storm. The silver dust whipped around him, but the hammer's glow kept a clear circle of calm air. The figures watched him silently. Then, one by one, they knelt. The largest one raised its head and spoke in a voice of fire. "Forge Master Reborn." "The Forge remembers." Lorne stood still, unsure if he was dreaming. The hammer grew brighter, humming softly. He felt warmth spread through his body, filling the cracks in his armor. Mara and Briggs came running out. "Captain, what's happening?" Lorne turned toward them, his eyes faintly glowing. "I don't know," he said, "but I think the metal chose me." The storm around them shifted again, swirling into a spiral that rose into the sky. Lightning flashed, forming strange patterns that matched the runes from the forge. Deep beneath the planet, something huge began to move. The ground shook. The AI's voice stuttered and then whispered, almost afraid. The forge is waking up. The planet trembled for hours. The storm above Erebos 9 turned brighter, flashing silver and white across the sky. Every machine in the human camp flickered with strange energy. The air buzzed like a living current. Lorne stood outside, still holding the hammer. Its glow no longer hurt his eyes. It felt like part of him. The metal on his gloves had spread to his arm, thin lines running under his skin like light veins. When he moved, the hammer responded before he even thought. It was alive but peaceful. Mara and Briggs watched from a distance, unsure whether to be afraid or amazed. "Captain," Mara said softly, "the readings are going off the charts. Whatever's under the ground, it's waking up." Lorne turned toward the horizon. The figures of light that had appeared earlier were gone, melted back into the dust. Only their glowing footprints remained, leading toward the east where the old ruins stood. "They're calling us," he said quietly. Briggs shook his head. "You mean calling you? I don't want to go anywhere near that forge again." But Lorne's mind was filled with whispers. They were not words but memories. The Forge Master's voice, fragments of alien prayers, the rhythm of hammers echoing in the dark. "If we don't go," he said, "it will come to us." They packed what they could and left before dawn. The landscape had changed overnight. Metallic dust covered every rock. Strange growths like silver vines had started spreading across the ground. They pulsed faintly, carrying light deep into the soil. After 2 hours they reached the ruins again. The once silent tunnels were now alive with sound. Faint echoes of hammering filled the air, the same steady rhythm from before, but now there were many hammers, not one. As they entered the main chamber, the forge was burning again. The anvil glowed white, and molten rivers ran across the floor like veins of light. The hammer in Lorne's hand began to hum in answer. Then he heard the Forge Master's voice inside his head. "You carry the spark. The forge remembers its purpose." Lorne closed his eyes. "Vaelkor, are you still here?" The answer came like a whisper carried by fire. "Only as memory. But memory is enough. The Ethereum has chosen you to finish what I began." The light around the forge grew stronger until the air shimmered. From the molten rivers, shapes began to rise, figures of pure metal, forming slowly as if they were being forged by invisible hands. They stood tall and silent, their bodies reflecting the fire. Briggs aimed his rifle. "Captain, tell me you're seeing this." Lorne stepped forward. "They're not enemies, they're—" Echoes. Mara watched the metallic beings move. Each one picked up a tool and began to hammer invisible metal in rhythm. "They're recreating what the Archon used to do," she whispered. "They're rebuilding their memory." Lorne placed the hammer on the anvil. The forge roared to life. The heat became unbearable, yet he did not move. The Ethereum inside him pulsed faster. He could feel its power running through his veins, connecting his mind to the alien constructs. Flashes filled his head, images of the Archon world before it fell. Massive forges stretching across cities, building ships that could move between galaxies. Then came the war, the greed, and the collapse. The Ethereum had watched it all. It had survived, buried in the ruins, waiting for belief to return. Mara shouted over the noise, "Lorne, your suit, it's melting." He looked down. His armor was changing, fusing with his skin, turning smooth and silver like liquid glass. "It's not melting," he said calmly. "It's becoming something new." Briggs pulled Mara back. "We have to get out of here before this whole place blows." But before they could move, the entire chamber shook violently. The ground split open, revealing a deep fissure glowing with red light. From inside came a deafening roar. The Forge Master's voice echoed again, louder now, filled with urgency. "The Forge of Souls has awakened. The metal remembers its makers and its destroyers." From the fissure, giant shapes began to rise, creatures of molten fire and metal, their eyes burning like suns. They were not Archon. They were the things that had destroyed them, old machines, twisted and hungry, the result of their final war. Mara screamed, "They're coming up!" Lorne lifted the hammer. Energy burst around him like a shield. "Go to the ship," he shouted. "I'll hold them off." Briggs grabbed his arm. "So you'll die here." "Maybe, but if I don't stop them now, they'll reach the surface." The first creature lunged forward, claws of liquid fire tearing through the floor. Lorne swung the hammer, and a shockwave of blue light struck the monster, breaking it apart. The forge answered his strike, the other metallic figures joining him, hammering in unison. Each blow sent ripples through the air, pushing the monsters back into the fissure. Mara watched from the tunnel entrance, tears running down her face. "He's becoming one of them," she whispered. The Forge Master's voice faded softly inside Lorne's mind. "Creation and destruction are one breath apart. Hold the forge, human, believe." With every swing, his body glowed brighter, until he looked like a star made of metal. The creatures screamed as they fell back into the molten pit. The cracks sealed themselves. The forge dimmed again, leaving only the sound of his final strike echoing through the ruins. When the light faded, Lorne was gone. Only the hammer remained on the anvil, cold and silent. Mara stepped forward and touched it. It was warm, pulsing softly like a heart still beating. Far above, the storm in the sky cleared for the first time. The dust shimmered and fell like silver rain. The storm over Erebos 9 had ended. The sky was clear for the first time since anyone had come to this planet. Silver dust floated gently through the air like snow. The camp was quiet. Only the wind moved, whispering across the empty landing field. Mara stood by the ramp of the ship, staring at the ruins in the distance. She still saw flashes of blue light when she closed her eyes, the moment Lorne had vanished inside the forge. The sound of his hammer echoed in her memory like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Briggs came up beside her, his armor scorched and cracked. "Engines are ready. We can leave any time," she didn't answer. The thought of leaving felt wrong. Somewhere deep inside, she still felt that Lorne was alive. "He told us to go," Briggs said. "You saw what happened down there. No one could survive that." Mara looked toward the horizon. The silver dust was drifting upward, not down. "He's not dead," she said quietly. "I can feel it." They boarded the ship, leaving behind the empty camp. As the engines lifted them into orbit, Erebos 9 looked peaceful below, a grey world shining under the pale sun. But the sensors were not peaceful. "Captain's seat feels strange," Briggs muttered as he sat down. "Power systems are fluctuating." The ship's AI, Helix, spoke suddenly, its voice calm but different. "Welcome back, crew of the Ravelin. Navigation online." Mara frowned. "Helix, your tone has changed. Run a self-diagnostic." "Diagnostic unnecessary," the AI replied. "All systems stable." Then a low hum spread through the cabin. The lights dimmed. The silver dust that had clung to their suits began to glow. Tiny sparks floated through the air, forming thin lines of light that twisted together. Briggs jumped up. "What the hell is that?" The lines formed into a faint figure, tall, human-shaped, but made entirely of light and metal. The voice that came next froze both of them. "You left too soon." It was Lorne. Mara's heart stopped for a second. "Lorne, is that you?" The figure turned its head slowly. "Part of me," it said. "The forge changed me. The metal. It remembered me." Briggs stepped back, his hand on his weapon. "You're not real. You're some kind of AI ghost." Lorne looked at him, his eyes glowing faintly. "No, I'm still me. But not only me." The ship shuddered. Alarms flashed red. "Warning," Helix said. "Massive energy surge detected, origin unknown." Lorne's form flickered, merging with the ship's systems. The controls stopped responding to human touch. "I can't control it," Briggs shouted. Lorne's voice filled the cockpit. "Don't fight it." "I can guide us." The stars outside shifted. A bright silver path opened in space, like a crack stretching across the dark. The ship moved toward it without thrusters. Mara gripped her chair. "Where are you taking us?" "To finish what the Forge Master began," Lorne said. "The Ethereum is not just metal. It's memory. It connects every forge, every spark of belief, across worlds." The ship entered the silver rift. For a moment, everything went silent. Then stars exploded around them, huge, slow waves of light like the universe breathing. They passed through clouds of broken ships, ruins floating in the void, remnants of the Arkan civilization. Mara stared out the window. "So this is where they died," Lorne's voice softened. "Not died. They became part of the forge. They're still here." Suddenly the radar beeped. Dozens of signals appeared around them, metallic shapes moving fast. "Contact ahead," Briggs yelled. "They're closing in." The view screen showed massive machines rising from the debris, dark and jagged, glowing red inside. The same creatures that had come from the fissure on Erebos 9. They followed us, Mara said. They were born of the same forge, Lorne replied. They hunger for power. But they cannot create, only destroy. The enemy ships fired beams of molten energy. The Ravelin shook violently. Sparks flew across the control panels. Helix, evasive maneuvers. Briggs shouted. Helix is no longer in command, Lorne said. His tone was calm. I am. The ship glowed silver, its hull changing shape. Metal flowed like water, sealing the cracks, forming new armor plates. The hammer symbol appeared on the nose of the ship, burning with blue light. Mara's eyes widened. Lorne, the ship is becoming Ethereum. Yes, he said. The forge lives through us now. He reached out through the light. You must trust me. The enemy fleet surrounded them. Lorne raised his glowing hand and the ship responded instantly. A wave of silver light burst outward, silent and endless. When it touched the enemy vessels, they froze, their red cores fading to grey. The Ravelin hovered among the silent wrecks. No more shots came. Only quiet. Briggs looked at the screen in disbelief. You stopped them. Lorne's voice grew faint. They are not gone, only sleeping. The forge is not done with them or with us. Mara reached toward the glowing light that was once her captain. Can you come back? As human? He hesitated. Part of me will. When the forge calls again, the light faded slowly. The ship's controls returned to normal. The scanners showed the silver rift closing behind them. Briggs sighed, sitting heavily in his chair. So what now? Mara looked out the window at the endless stars. Now we keep flying, she said, because somewhere out there he's still building. Outside, a small spark of silver drifted away from the ship, floating through the dark until it disappeared into the distance. The stars reflected in it, millions of tiny forges waiting to awaken, years passed after the events on Erebos 9. The story of Captain Lorne and the impossible. Metal spread across human space like a quiet legend. Some called him a myth, others called him the first human forge master. But no one who had met him ever forgot the silver light that saved them that day. Mara and Briggs became part of the new exploration fleet. Their ship, the Ravelin, was repaired but never the same. Its hull still shimmered faintly with living metal. Sometimes when the engines hummed at night, they could still hear a single echo, the sound of a hammer striking far away. One morning, a strange signal reached the human colonies. It came from the outer rim, far beyond mapped space. The transmission was weak, old, and familiar. A voice spoke through static. The forge remembers. Creation calls again. Mara froze when she heard it. The voice was Lorne's. The message contained coordinates to a lifeless star system. Against orders, she and Briggs took the Ravelin and followed the signal. Days turned into weeks. Finally, they reached the edge of a red dwarf star surrounded by drifting asteroids. There, hidden inside the debris, was a structure, massive and ancient, made of the same silver metal as the forge on Erebos 9. It looked like a floating city, glowing faintly in the dark. This wasn't built by humans, Briggs said, his voice soft with awe. Mara nodded. No, but maybe it's waiting for us. As they approached, their scanners went wild. The metal wasn't just reflecting signals. It was sending them back in patterns like language. The Ravelin's systems began to translate. The Forge of Stars welcomes its makers. The main gate opened slowly, revealing a long corridor filled with drifting light. They stepped out in their suits, walking through the glowing passage. The walls pulsed like veins. Every step they took echoed as if hundreds of others were walking beside them. At the end of the corridor stood a tall figure. Its body was made of light and silver, shifting between human and alien shapes. When it turned, Mara felt her heart stop. Lorne. He smiled faintly. His face looked younger, smoother, but his eyes still carried the same calm strength. You came, he said. Mara stepped closer. What happened to you? I became what the forge needed, he said. The Ethereum isn't only metal. It's memory. When I believed, it remembered me. And through me, it remembered humanity. Briggs looked around. This place, it's alive, Lorne nodded. It's one of many. The Archon built these forges to create, not to destroy. When they fell, the forges slept. Now they are waking again. Mara looked out a window where stars filled the void. And what do they want from us? Lorne placed a hand on the wall. The metal responded with a soft glow. They don't want anything. They offer a choice and to rebuild, to create worlds instead of wars. She hesitated. You sound like the Forge Master, he smiled. He was the first believer. Now it's our turn. The forge around them began to hum. Rivers of molten silver flowed beneath transparent floors. Machines shaped like giant hands moved slowly, crafting structures out of light. In the center of the chamber stood an unfinished starship, half-formed, floating above the forge like a dream being built. "This is what the Ethereum remembers," Lorne said. "A ship made not to conquer but to heal. It can reshape planets, rebuild what war destroyed. But it needs human hands to finish it." Mara looked at the glowing hammer that appeared in his grasp. "You kept it." "It kept me," Lorne said. "Now it's time to pass it on." He offered the hammer to her. When she touched it, light surged through the room. Images filled her mind. Cities reborn, worlds shining, humanity and the Archon working side by side in the distant future. Tears filled her eyes. "I can see it. The Forge believes in you," Lorne said softly. "Because you believed in me." He stepped back as the walls brightened. The metal began to weave around her hands, forming a new set of armor, a new spark of creation. The hammer glowed brighter, syncing with her heartbeat. Briggs watched silently, his expression full of respect. "Guess he passed the fire to you," he said quietly. Lorne's body began to fade, turning into streams of light that merged with the forge. His final words echoed gently through the vast chamber. "The impossible metal is not what we forge. It's what we become." The light faded. The forge went quiet again, resting like a giant heart between the stars. Mara stood still, the hammer in her hands shining softly. Then she looked at Briggs and smiled. "Let's finish what he started." The camera pulled back as the starship of silver light began to rise, surrounded by millions of tiny sparks. New forges awakening across the galaxy, and somewhere in the endless dark, the sound of a hammer struck once more, calm, steady, eternal.